So, for example, the ones that I have here are, where do our moral intuitions come from? So, some different approaches to this might be, our moral intuitions are just natural facets of us as humans. We naturally have a moral intuition that allows us to access um, the moral truth. Other answers might be different. So they might say that moral intuitions have come about because of the culture that you were born in. The instinctive responses that you have are really just a response to the way that you've been brought up or socialized. This kind of nature versus nurture debate, writ large, applies here as well. Or we might think that moral intuitions can be explained by appealing to evolution. So with the kind of social fitness of different adaptations, ethical intuitions are similarly things that have been changed over time to make us more suited to our environment. And then a similar question that, as a result of this is, should answers to this question about where our moral intuitions come from inform how reliable we think they are? So if we have a good answer to here's where our moral intuitions come from, should that lead us to be more or less confident in them? Or is it something that's kind of a parallel question? The second lot of questions I think are important are everyone's moral intuitions the same? So one of the things that we're going to talk about in future lectures is thinking about, is there significant disagreement when it comes to people's moral intuitions? And if there is it a problem? Should this should this evidence of disagreement be something that causes us to become less confident in the reliability of our moral intuitions at getting towards the moral truth? Or can this be explained in some other way that doesn't force us to make this kind of radical departure from our understanding? What's the relationship between moral intuitions and moral theories? So we touched on this already, thinking about judgments from moral theories that stem exclusively from moral theories can't really be counted as intuitions because these come from kind of processes of inference. But what's the biggest story about the relationships between intuitions and theories, and how do these go together in a good kind of ethical understanding? How can we check whether our intuitions are reliable? So it seems like we have a lot of intuitions, but it's not like kind of a scientific process as to where we have a theory and then we can go and check that against the world. So how can we understand whether our intuitions are reliable in the first place? And this seems like it's going to be a really important question to work out whether we can trust them at all. And then finally, what can we do if we can't trust our moral intuitions? If it turns out that our answer to our big question is going to be no, then what do we do? What becomes of ethics if it turns out that our moral intuitions are unreliable? Is there any hope for doing ethics at all? Or is that just a question of switching to a new methodology? So I think all of these questions are going to be things that you're going to want to consider if you choose to write this topic. And having good answers to these lower level questions are going to be things that will enable you to have a really good answer to the high level question that we introduced today. So just to finish off then, I'm going to go through the plan for the future lectures that we're going to do. So we've got 6 lectures, including this one, which was all to do with analysing the question. For lecture 2, I'm going to zoom out and start thinking about where do intuitions fit into ethics more generally. And so we're going to think about how to set up this puzzle of how we use intuitions in ethics currently, and whether that's going to be something that is a good idea. What's the kind of main challenge to the way that we currently use intuitions, and why is this something that we should be looking to investigate? And then we're also going to think about G. Moore and his understanding of the ethical sense and ethical intuitionism, and thinking about some problems with that view as a kind of precursor to some more modern understandings of how intuitions work in ethics. In lecture 3, we're going to think about the relativity of moral intuitions. And so this relates to some stuff that we've been saying already about what should we do if we find that there are significant disagreements amongst our moral intuitions spread across different groups of people. We're going to think about whether this shows that moral intuitions are unreliable, and the potential hypothesis that moral intuitions simply emerge as a feature of our cultural group or cultural background.